Should you consume dairy or none? Can you have a little bit of alcohol or should you abstain? How important are phytonutrients, the nutrients from plants in our body? How does nutrition affect sports performance? Well, my guest today, Leslie Bonci, has an incredible pedigree that I share in the introduction. But most importantly, she is the sports dietitian for the Kansas City Chiefs, the Pittsburgh Steelers, a host of other high performance athletes. And she's on the National Whey Protein Advisory Council, the U.S. Dairy Association. Like, she is going to talk about everything nutrition-wise today. So this show, as you know, is business, health, and wealth. And we are going to hone in on health and what you should be eating, what you shouldn't. But most importantly, you will love how she talks about what you should eat and the things to add back into your diet versus a lot of dietitians telling you what you can't eat. And that's not her approach. She is incredibly insightful, very educated, and has worked with some of the top performing athletes in the world. So you know she can help me and you. Enjoy this show. I have the pleasure of interviewing Leslie Bonci, the owner of Active Eating Advice. Be fit, fed, and fearless is the motto. It's a nutritional consulting company working with clients such as the National Dairy Council, Gatorade, Potatoes USA, and General Mills, so large companies. She is the nutrition consult for Carnegie Mellon University Athletics and the Pittsburgh Ballet Theater, and has served as a sports dietitian for teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, you may have heard of them, Pittsburgh Steelers, and Toronto Blue Jays. Leslie is a member of the Whey Protein Advisory Council and an ambassador for the National Dairy Council, with a long-standing role in promoting health and wellness through practical, evidence-based strategies. And as an accomplished author, Leslie has written several books in addition to being a regular blogger for U.S. News and World Report and a sought-after media expert. She's been featured on The Today Show, Dr. Oz, and in publications like USA Today and NBC.com. She's been there, done that. She is qualified, and we are going to jump into nutrition, healthy eating, and how to live a better life. So, Leslie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I am thrilled to be here. And you know what? Nutrition is a really important part of your ROI, right? It's not just your business portfolio. It's what's your nutrition portfolio? Where's that intuition in the kitchen to help you get where you want to be and stay there?
I love that. I love ROI. That is the best ROI you have is your own health. I love that. So how did you start? Like, let's start there, Leslie. How did you start down a path and a career in nutrition?
And I went to undergrad at Vassar College and did biopsychology and had absolutely no clue of what I could do with that, short of working in a lab with rats. And it really wasn't on my career path. And so graduated in 3 years, moved back to Pittsburgh, which is home. And my parents said, now what? And I started graduate school at the University of Pittsburgh in public health. The first class was a maternal and child nutrition class. And it was literally like, bing, 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 bing. You know, there it is. This is what I want to do. And then it kind of evolved from there. And it was truly the best move for me 43 years later, still in this career and still loving it.
What was it about that class that you took that the light bulb went off and the bells rang?
Just the idea about how we can help people. I mean, truly, everybody needs to eat, right? This is not an option. Everybody's eating. And so how do you do that in a preventative, proactive, and positive way? Because a lot of what we see out there is more on the focus of what not to do. And everybody's like, la, 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 la. Nobody wants to do that anymore.
Yeah, you're right. It's all, you can't do this, can't do that. Well, then let's talk about that. What are some of the more, the larger misconceptions around eating that you encounter in your work, in your practice?
Yeah. That foods are bad. I think that's the number one, that there are foods that are bad. Now, that being said, are there bad foods? If you're allergic to a food, of course, it could kill you. If you have intolerance to a food, you probably don't want to eat it because it can cause a lot of gut issues for you, or if the food is spoiled. So nobody should be taking any of these food recalls lightly. I mean, this is really, really serious stuff. Other than that, when we start categorizing foods, good or bad, what do we all do? You give somebody a list of bad foods. Everything I like is on that list. And immediately the frown. And we feel deprived. That's probably the biggest one overall. The second one is kind of this how many times you eat a day and how does that impact your metabolism? Well, the truth is that you're not going to have a better metabolism if you eat every 2 hours. Most likely, that's going to result in eating too much. And who has that kind of time in the
Yeah.
course of the day? I mean, this is the problem. A third one, I think, would be eating after 7 o'clock. I mean, if we have that in their head, is what happened at 7:05. I mean, really, no matter what coast you live on, things don't automatically go sour at the 7:05. And in our house, we don't eat dinner until 8 o'clock at night because we both want to be at the table together. And otherwise, that means separate times of eating. And I don't find that enjoyable. So
Yeah.
those are probably the big three right now.
Gotcha. And no, that's helpful. It's funny. So that leads me to a question that it's not in my notes, but I'd love to find out, what are your thoughts, Leslie, on paleo, on keto, on Whole30, on intermittent fasting? I know that's a lot, but can you just take those maybe slowly one by one? And what are the pros, cons of these large, there's all kinds of specialized diets, but these pretty large, somewhat acceptable, some maybe a fad diet, but that first and foremost, let's start with intermittent fasting, right?
Okay.
That seems to be, yeah.
Yes. And so, first of all, there's a lot of different ways that we define that. So, intermittent fasting could be you are eating within a certain window and fasting the rest of the day, to I'm eating normally 2 days and then fasting on the third day. So, there's no one definition of the way that this is. A lot of people do this with the goal of losing weight. That's really the
Hmm.
goal. But the studies have not shown that it's any better to
Mm,
intermittent fast or time restricted eating than any other type of plan. The outcome is going to be the same. You're still going to either lose weight or not lose weight. The biggest issue I see, and because I work a lot in the world of active people, is how do you fit this all in? How do I fit my eating in and my exercise? Because exercising fasted is really not what we're looking to do. And secondly, it might really take all the joy out of eating. I can only eat between 8 and 2, and everybody has dinner at 6. What do? Sit there and twiddle your thumbs at the table?
yeah.
That's not necessarily an enjoyable thing. So, and then the third thing is about intermittent fasting. It doesn't necessarily change what you eat. It changes the time that you choose to eat. So if you weren't eating that well to begin with, now all you've done is you've restricted the hours of that not so wonderful eating. So that's not moving the needle in a positive direction.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's back up just a hair and run the tape back to when you said, we don't want to be exercising while we're fasting. There are a lot of influencers and people who don't have the degrees you have and the experience you have that say, oh, definitely, fast, wake up, do your workout while you're fasting. And everything I've read and studied shows that you're going to burn through your glucose stores in about 20 minutes, and then you're going to start eating away your muscle. So what are the facts around intermittent fasting workouts?
Well, and so a couple of things is first of all, I'm always a very big believer in you get your nutrition info from those that do know. And unfortunately, a lot of people putting the information out there don't know it all. And so when we think about this, the goal of exercise should never be muscle depletion. Like that we want muscle preservation or gain, depending upon what we're trying to
Hmm.
accomplish. And so this is the problem is we have relatively limited carbohydrate supplies. And we would think, okay, the body will go right to fat. That's what a lot of the influencers are saying. Wrong. That doesn't happen. The body's going to muscle because that's the next available thing. So, oh, well, look at this. I exercised fasted and then I weighed myself and I weighed less. A, you might have lost fluid. So, and B, you might have lost some muscle, not necessarily lost more fat. And then the other component of this is if you're exercising on empty and you're doing a hard workout, Orange Theory, whatever it is, you might be exhausted half of the way through because your muscles are saying, excuse me, where is the fuel? So
Yeah.
that is not always the best outcome. That doesn't mean we have to have an entree before. I'm really more a believer in the appetizer side. So an app before you exercise, not a meal.
Yeah. Okay. And that's great. That really confirms what I had heard and read, and that makes sense to me. So if we think about keto, we think about the carnivore. Let's start with keto and carnivore. Not that they're the same, but if we can address those, because they're at least they're on the same side of the tracks, if you will. Yeah.
Okay. So, well, what they have in common is keto and carnivore is that they're both low carbohydrate diets. They are. So, but with the keto diet, if you're really doing the keto diet the way that it's intended, it can be upwards of 80% fat, which means that we could not be getting enough protein in because we're so focused on getting in the fat. With carnivore diet, it's pretty much about the protein, so the animal protein. So you're eating meat, but you're not getting your carbohydrate needs met. Depending upon the meat that you choose, you might not be getting your fat needs met. And it's really about what they don't have in them. So what do they not have? Carbohydrate. So being the fuel for the brain, being the source of fiber, we have got to take care of our guts. And I will tell you, after 31 years in the NFL, I have seen it all. I have had athletes try it all. And initially they do it because it's all about the outward look. I want to have ripped abs. Not everybody gets them because not everybody's built that way. But the unintended consequences. I can't go to the bathroom. Okay, that's a problem. I feel exhausted during the day. That's a problem. I feel a little bit dehydrated, which is one of the biggest issues when you don't consume enough carbohydrate. Carbohydrate helps the body be in fluid balance. So when you take away that carbohydrate, yes, you see the drop on the scale, but that's reflective of fluid loss. And interestingly, when you overemphasize the protein without enough carbohydrate, you can also be losing muscle. This is the thing that people don't think about, or that piece of the puzzle that's not there. So there are times when people could modify. How about if we do like meat instead of meat alone, or not so high in fat, and bring some carbohydrates into the mix? That doesn't mean that it has to be a dessert. There's lots of other options that are available. And, this year, or I even think moving into 2025, taking care of our guts, not just the ripped ab part of it. What's happening on the inside? Because if our gut doesn't feel good, we don't feel good. I am all about gut health.
Yeah. This segment is sponsored by Rockbox Fitness Franchising. Take control of your destiny and join the boutique fitness revolution with Rockbox Fitness. If you're ready to make a real impact in your community and own your own business that empowers people to achieve their best life, then Rockbox is the opportunity you've been looking for. They provide comprehensive support from site selection, upfit, training, and turnkey marketing, so you can open your studio with confidence and a strong recurring revenue member base. Visit rockboxfitness.com and click on franchise opportunities to learn more about this exciting venture in the fast-growing boutique fitness industry. It's time to turn your passion for fitness and for business into a thriving venture. Before we go on to maybe some of these other eating plans, nutrition plans, you have worked with the Chiefs, the Steelers. If you could speak to what role does nutrition play? Should it play in optimizing an athlete's performance? I mean, you're thinking about the NFL. You're thinking about guys playing at the highest level, for the highest stakes, for professional sports, and nutrition has to be in play a key role. But I would imagine a lot of them you find them when they don't have the best information. They haven't been given the best information. So how do you go about working with some of these athletes?
So the first and what really resonates, again, it's what's your ROI? Everybody has a different one. So for a professional football player, it's career extension. I want to play for a longer period of time because that's my financial ROI if I do so. And that means I have to treat my body well. I don't want to increase the risk of injury. I don't want to be the second or third string instead of the A team on the field because I didn't do what I needed to. And so you have to be at top of our game mentally, right? So we know that fuel is not just neck down, it's neck up. We've got to fuel the brain so we can have a quick reaction time, so we know what plays are coming, so we can respond appropriately. We also, especially in football, there is an element of speed, not for the O-line, or they're not tiny, but for some of the other players on the field. You have to be able to run down to get that pass from Mahomes. I mean, that's important, or Wilson for that matter. And so that is having fuel in your body. That's what the carbohydrate does, critically important. You also have to have stamina. Even though there are a lot of commercial breaks in a football game, you're on the field for an extended period of time. I have 5 minutes of energy and then I'm done. This is not a track event. This is at least a 2-hour event. That's important. And then it's also a component of strength, which people forget about is, you just eat protein and I'll be strong. It's the recipe of both together. You have to have the protein and the carbohydrate. So that's the way I always talk about it. I don't talk about nutrition because that is in one ear and over the other. It's kind of the
Sure.
way that it is. Talk about performance fuel. Our kitchen is called the performance kitchen. Why? Because that's the dangling carrot. That's what we want to do. And, the fact of the matter is that there are some professional athletes in every sport that come with baggage. They can have underlying health issues. Some of those are nutrition related. So we're
Yeah.
not just taking care of the athlete, taking care of the individual and helping to control whatever symptoms they have so that that doesn't get in the way when they are playing. And nutrition rehabilitation is also a very big deal if somebody does get injured. It's not just about the surgery or the PT. It's the hand to mouth thing. What are you doing to help to expedite that healing? And there are a lot of foods that are helpful for that. There were some that's like not good research.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I do. It's trying to bring the science, but doing it with a lot of humor and sass because that's the way it needs to be, and giving the why to try. Well, that's
Yeah.
important. Don't just tell me to do it. Tell me why and what am I going to get as a result of doing that.
I thank you for that, because I preach so much on this show, on social media, about when I'm talking about persuasion, influence, and selling, that people and prospects do not care about your product. They just couldn't care less about your business, about your product. They care what your product or service can do for them. And what you've just said, and so just talk about that. Don't talk about your product. And what you just said is they don't care about nutrition. They care about longevity of playing, making more money, through their career, recovering faster. Like, you're speaking the language that matters to them, because nobody wants to hear you need to improve your nutrition. No.
Exactly. And interestingly, because oftentimes if we talk about healthy food, then the mind goes to, ew, I don't like that. I
Yep.
don't want to have just raw broccoli or whatever that food is. And eating broccoli is fine, right? They're great. They're important, but we have to say it in a different way. So, all about a little flu fighter shots or soothy smoothie, those types of things where it's words that make sense. It's like, oh, I want to feel better. I want to be
Yeah.
comforted. I want to have less inflammation. Yep, check, check, check.
Yeah. No, I love it. So then let's go back into let's say like Mediterranean, Whole30. I'd put those again on the other side of the track, as two of the other big
So I
zone
think
call.
Whole30 is very, very restrictive. And it's kind of, you have to go in phases. It's starting at this very restrictive level and then gradually increasing. Well, the problem with that initially is it makes it simple. All right, okay, there aren't so many things for me to choose from, but it also makes one feel incredibly guilty. Oh, I couldn't do that for a certain period of time. I'm a bad person. Psychologically, like, must be something wrong with me because I couldn't maintain it. Well, no, there's nothing wrong. It's too restrictive to begin with. Therein
Yeah.
lies the problem. Luckily, our brains sometimes are smarter, want to give them credit for, and the body's like, yeah, nice. No, we're not going to do that. And then from a Mediterranean aspect, we think about the fact that a majority of the world, 21 countries, in fact, actually consume what we would call a Mediterranean style diet. There's a lot of plant. It's not necessarily plant exclusive. There's a lot of beans that are there. We don't eat as many of those here. There's a lot of produce that is part of that diet. And it isn't just a big plate of pasta or a big plate of rice, or it is some with other things. But the protein is more the side than the central focus of the plate. Do you get protein from grains? Yes, you do. Do you get protein from vegetables? Yes, you do. Do you get it from beans and legumes? Yes, you do. And when we look at who's living longer, in general, tends to be people that have a Mediterranean style diet customized for the region of the world in which they live. It is available, it is affordable, it is accessible, and it's traditional. And I'm a very big believer in that. We have to eat things that we've grown up with and are comfortable with. Otherwise, we can't sustain it over any extended period of time. And there's been a lot of research on Mediterranean style diet from the standpoint of disease entities, lowering blood pressure, lowering blood glucose, lowering cholesterol levels. So that's a lot of pluses.
Yeah. 100%. And I think when you said too that the protein is more of the side dish, if you will, but also just the serving sizes overall. Whenever I travel to Europe, I'm always amazed at the petiteness, if that's a word, how petite the meal, the serving size is of any given thing you're
Yes.
eating.
Yes.
And we're just so accustomed in America to having a giant, we want to get our value worth, right? We get this giant plate of food that we don't need, but I think that has something to do with that as well. What would you say because you're, especially if you're dealing with professional athletes, and you talked about Mahomes and the Chiefs and the Steelers, and then you're part of these other organizations. I think of those guys being really busy, right? Because they're not just playing on Sunday. Those guys are, watching film, they're practicing, they're doing media stuff. I mean, those guys have busy lives, especially the more popular players. How, and as does like an executive who may be listening to this show, how do you help and coach and counsel around nutrition and healthy eating a busier individual, someone who is on the run, who is traveling, right? Going to different cities and all that. How do you coach them to stay on plan?
One of the things about traveling is kind of what's in your bag, what's in your briefcase, what's in your backpack, what kind of things are you bringing with you, which is not, oh, I have a chicken leg that's in there. It's not about that. It's bringing things that are portable and shelf stable, right? Because we don't want to have food safety issues, but it's also not, oh, I don't have anything, so I'll just wait, or I'll power through this meeting and I'll wait. And we miss that fueling opportunity. And so, yeah, bringing like even a deconstructed bento box type of a thing, or things in little containers that work, and they
Yep.
get through TSA because it's not liquid. So various types of jerky, various types of nuts. I'm a very big believer in incorporating some prunes into that mix for many, many reasons of gut health and sweet, and it works. A little bit of trail mix is a good thing. There's a lot of bars that are out there, but we don't need all the bells and whistles. It can be something on the relatively simple side. The nice thing about all those foods is they are shelf stable. They are portable, non-perishable. Things like the roasted chickpeas, roasted mung beans. They're crunchy. It's kind of like the nut alternative, but it's also providing a bean. Most people aren't going to travel with a can of beans through TSA. It's just not
Sure.
going to happen. But those types of things, then you're not stuck with what am I going to find at a convenience store, a bodega, or what am I going to find in the airport, depending upon the airport you're flying through. There may not be a lot of option. Jerky, those types of things, they work. Even bringing a PBJ. It doesn't have to be the
Yeah.
ones that are already frozen, and we don't have to do that type, right? This is a simple food to eat. And then fruits as well, non-perishable fruit. So apple, pear, orange, if somebody doesn't mind the peel, I could actually have a nice aromatherapy on a plane,
Yeah.
with that kind of a thing. And even when we're looking at veggies, there are some, right? So things that work from a portable perspective, the little mini cucumbers, carrots, even grape tomatoes, if we put them in something where they're not exploding all over our MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
Those things work really, really well to just flesh it out. And, it's just door number 2 in case we can't always get to the door number 1.
Yeah. No, well said. And man, it's funny. I used to travel a lot more with business. I still travel a lot, but I used to travel 40 weeks a year. And I don't know why in my early 30s, I would always pack a PB&J and bring that on the plane because I knew the plane wouldn't have good food. I quit doing that. I don't know why I quit doing that because it was a healthy, nice little alternative. It traveled well, get a little smush, but I even got these little plastic things that you could close it in so it wouldn't get
Yep.
smushed. And if you had to say, a listener who wants to, a listener to the ThriveMore show here who wants to lose some weight, is got a moderate exercise plan, but they're a little bit stuck. What are some of the small, keyword sustainable, so they don't just start and stop, changes that you would, if you had to say, hey, here are 2 or 3 things, like there's 100 things you should be doing, but I know that you probably won't. So just stick with these 2 or 3. Let's get these down, and then we can go on to step 4. What would those 2 or 3 things be?
So interestingly, the first one is about the add-in, because a lot of times when people are trying to lose weight, they're always out thinking about what they shouldn't be eating. And the add-in from the standpoint of gut health. Reason for that being, a lot of times when people try and lose weight, they're cutting down significantly on what they're eating, especially of foods that have fiber in them. They don't. And then it's like, we've got a lot of we can't sustain it because our gut feels too uncomfortable. I think it's also critically important to be consistent across the day with the number of times that you eat,
Okay.
not okay, I'm going to eat 4 times Monday through Friday, and it's just one continuous eating episode on the weekend. So we need to have
Sure.
that consistency there. And the third thing is to incorporate the fill up foods, not fill
Mm,
out, the fill up food. That means foods that have liquid within them,
mm.
soups, stews, chilies, things like fruit, vegetables, salad, pickles. Those types of things help to fill us up, but not out. Because if we just cut back on the amount we eat, then there's that voice in the back saying, where's the rest of the meal? That was nice,
Sure.
but now what do we do? And then we sabotage ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. How much is, from your experience in research and education, how prevalent is binge eating in our country? I just feel like, people have dinner and then it's that 9, 10 o'clock. It's the secret nobody wants to talk about. It's the dirty little secret nobody wants to talk about. But, we as Americans, me included, will go crush a bag of chips followed by something else, followed by something else, but we don't tell anybody about it.
So there's a couple of things going on. And first of all and when I have clients that I work with that is an issue for them, I always ask them, it's like, what's happening earlier in the day? And more often than not, it's, well, I didn't really have time for breakfast, or I'm not hungry in the morning. And I was busy at lunchtime. And so then by the time you eat dinner, the body's like, now we're on catch up mode, right? We're in catch up
Yeah.
mode. So we got to keep eating because we didn't have the satiety from earlier in the day. That's one of the things. Second thing is that oftentimes the things that people are choosing to overconsume with might be the handheld thing. No, I'll just
Yep.
get it out of a bag or a box or a jar. And we don't really know what we're having. No, most people aren't counting out 10 crackers. They're not doing that. Or
No.
I have it while I'm watching television. So my eyes, or if I'm on my computer screen, my
Yeah.
eyes are focused there. They're not focused on, what am I eating? So I don't say to people, all right, no eating after 7 o'clock. If they're used to eating after that, that's not going to work. They're going to start eating their arm. But what can work is at least a step in between. Can we portion it? Can
Mm.
we put it on a plate? Can we put it in a small bowl? Can we sit down and eat it so that we're not in the kitchen with the octopus effect? A little this, a little that. Like buffet in our kitchen is not always a good thing after dinner. And can we slow down? Because that oftentimes is not happening. And, it's kind of like how quickly I
Yeah.
consume this food
Oh,
and
yeah.
inhale.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if we exhale a little bit, deep breath, sit down, eat, we're probably going to eat less.
Yeah. If I eat it fast enough, the calories will just flow right through me. Yeah. That's right.
Or
Hey,
if I eat it fast enough, nobody else sees it, therefore it doesn't count. So it's like, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna ask you a question, and I don't know how. And you may, I don't know. You may be biased in how you answer this just because you work with them. But I would love to get, because you work with the Whey Protein Advisory Council, their panel, and you're an ambassador for the National Dairy Council. I drank milk, ate dairy foods, cheese, yogurt, cottage cheese, all that up until about 6 years ago. And because I own a fitness business, one of my trainers said, we're the only mammal in the history of the world who drinks any milk besides our mothers, consumes any milk besides our mothers. Just think about that, Roger. And I went home and he got so much free rent in my head that day. And then I started doing some research on dairy, and I couldn't find a lot of positives other than the protein, the high protein, low fat potential of it. So I've reintroduced. I've always taken whey protein isolate, so I've just never given that up. But I definitely have limited my cheese. I've eliminated cottage cheese. I don't drink any milk now. I drink almond milk, or organic real almond milk. None of the fillers or gummy stuff. I would love to know, as unbiased as you can be, if you have any bias working with these companies, should we be eating dairy or not? Should we be eating dairy or not?
So one of the things that I think it's very important to talk about is that most people don't have unlimited amount of time to think about fussing food, prepping food, even eating food if they're
Yeah.
busy. And the nice thing about dairy foods is kind of one-stop shopping, and there it is.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they are a source of protein. They also, depending upon what we're picking, like a fermented dairy food, so a kefir or something like that, yogurt, we're getting the probiotics and the protein simultaneously, both of those things together. plus the other vitamins and minerals that are in dairy foods. Sometimes it is a little bit hard to get enough calcium from other types of foods. We don't always. Yeah, and it's a ready to use. I mean, I think it's interesting that cottage cheese has made such a comeback right now. I'm like, huh. But yogurt is also a very easy food that's quite versatile, right? That could be sweet, that could be a savory application, depending upon what it is that we do. And milk, the issue is that when you compare them across the board, are they all the same nutritionally? They're not. Are they all the same price point wise? No, they definitely are not. And not everybody has the luxury of unlimited income when it comes to the foods that they buy as well. So we're looking at a relatively low cost item that actually confers a lot of health benefits. Of kind of there's the nutrition ROI for those types of foods. And interestingly, a lot of the studies right now that are looking at dairy around the world and really challenging some of the long held myths about dairy foods increase the risk of heart disease. That's not what the studies are showing. Dairy foods can have a favorable impact on the microbiome. Well, that's kind of important, that taking care of the gut from the inside out. So when I talk with people about this, I mean, after that people don't want to consume dairy, that's their choice. But it might be the FOMO. If we don't, what are we going to replace that with? Because sometimes you have to have considerably more of something else to get that amount of B12, calcium, etc. I want people eating vegetables, but how much vegetable are you going to eat to make up for what might be in that cup of dairy, of milk? And we need calcium. That is one of the critically important nutrients to support bone and the health of our teeth. I have a daughter-in-law who's a dentist. We talk about teeth all the time. So, it's just really, really important. And again, no judgment. It's a choice for people to make, but I'm always weighing out all of those things. Cost, availability, easy prep, liking it, right? And all of those things are important in any food choices that any of us make.
You're a very realistic person. Like I've talked to other nutritionists, and it's they take a very strong stance on certain things. And you seem to have this balanced approach of, look, man, you've got to get an ROI on your food. Now, how you do that could be very different than the next person, but it's about the end result, not about my list is better than somebody else's list. That's the way I'm experiencing right now, which is really cool. That's a great way to go about it.
I have to meet people where they are, and I have to listen to learn. It's not me saying this is what somebody has to eat. I'm not in your body. I don't know what you want to have, but I'm going to give you kind of back to the why to try. I'm going to give you the explanation for, and you take that advice and you do with that what you want, right? It's like going to a financial advisor. All right, somebody's making suggestions to me. So this is a nutrition advisor, is I'm making suggestions to you, and you are going to decide what you want to invest in to help to improve your nutrition portfolio. Or not. We don't have to take the advice. It's just one of those things, and always trying to present both sides, because I think it's critically important. And we don't always see that in what's out there in the cyberspace world, or what I would call the sinfluencers sometimes, because unfortunately it is that way. It's like, you just have to do this. It's like, well, wait a minute. That doesn't really, like, why? Why do I have to do it that way? Or made to feel guilty? We're not about that at all. Absolutely not.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by ThriveMore Autopilot. The latest data shows a large amount of small to mid-sized business owners are living paycheck to paycheck, and that is not why you started a business in the first place. We all start businesses to create the freedom in our lives that we want and to give us options. But to do that, you need more leads, and you need to turn those prospects into long-term paying customers. Well, the solution is ThriveMore Autopilot. ThriveMore Autopilot is the turnkey solution to take the stress and the hard work out of new customer acquisition, which is the lifeblood of any small business. ThriveMore Autopilot works on your behalf to generate a waterfall of new leads through various channels, to nurture those leads with proprietary AI solutions that mimic human interaction, to sell memberships and help you increase your monthly recurring revenue, and they even provide you coaching and your team coaching on the most effective sales techniques and give you a community of other like-minded business owners. ThriveMore Autopilot is how you scale your business without stress and the relentless phone calls and texts and reach outs to the prospects to get them to show up for that first appointment or to show up to that call. So learn how ThriveMore Autopilot can help you win big by going to thrivemore.ai. That's thrivemore.ai. ThriveMore Autopilot, the strategic partner for small to mid-sized business owners to help you scale and live the life of your dreams. Other than like ultra processed foods or highly processed foods, which usually, have had all the nutrients just taken from them, is there any type of food category class that you do dissuade people from eating? Is there anything in particular?
Well, and first of all, Roger, even thinking about this from the ultra processed, and there's a big question mark on how we define that, because according to the categorization, tofu would be considered an ultra processed food, isn't it? So coffee is an ultra processed food. That happens to be something I can't live without.
Sure.
So we have to pick and choose carefully with that. To me, there are a couple things that I would put maybe in the category of be careful with. One, if we have any type of allergy, intolerance, sensitivity to the food. I mean, that's just asking for punishment. It's like, don't eat that food. Secondly, for people that maybe tend to have issues with bloating and those types of things, sometimes people with irritable bowel syndrome, that's one of their things that they experience, is when you consume something that has carbonation in it, that creates gas in the body. That could be a problem. It's not judging the food, it's just saying sometimes we want to be careful of things that exacerbate underlying symptoms that we have. And the third thing would be, there are some people that will say that, they're probably more than are willing to admit, is it's a certain food, I just can't eat a little bit of it. Then, okay, maybe you don't have that food at home, because we don't necessarily buy ice cream in scoop size. We buy it in something larger. It's like, oh, look, I'm using a ladle instead of a teaspoon. When you go to an ice cream parlor,
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about, Leslie.
Right? I mean, that's the thing. It becomes a stressful food for us when we feel like it's there and I can't. So it doesn't mean not eat it. It means eat it out, where somebody else is controlling how much you're getting in that little kitty cup, instead of you trying to decide that on your own at home.
Yeah. No, good advice. Good advice. Leslie, I'd love to get your input as a nutritionist on alcohol. And I will just share with you that I drink alcohol, but I am well aware that it's a neurotoxin. We are actually drinking a poison that we just have a tolerance to. And I really believe, this is my opinion from what I've read, that yes, red wine can have some benefits, but so does a little carton of raspberries or blueberries, right? So I would love to, so I'm a guy who, I can see it for what it is, but I still enjoy the feeling. I still enjoy that, that warmth that flows through you after that first drink, and I'm an introvert, so I'm a little more social. But damn, I can't find a positive reason to drink anything other than I enjoy the feeling and then the sociability of it. But the more I read about it, the more it scares the crap out of me.
So there are studies that have looked at red wine and why that the resveratrol that is in the red wine that is conferring that protective effect. But it is also, it can be a social thing, but it's also the way we consume it, right? So very different of what we tend to do here in the US than other countries of the world, where you might be sitting down to have wine to celebrate as part of your meal, rather than, let me go to a bar and have several before my meal, and then I'll have something with my meal as well. And then the serving size of, right? So you're less likely to see these mixed drinks where it might be 5 or 6 shots of something in other places of the world. It's a glass of wine. And it's not an enormous glass of wine. My husband's family is from Italy. We go like little glasses,
guy.
not the, I could put the whole bottle of Cabernet into one glass. So portion size is really a big thing. There are a lot more people right now that are choosing to not drink, or maybe do the idea of mocktail. But I think it's really important for people to understand that there's still calories there. I mean, with a mocktail, you're still going to put something in it. So, drink water or drink seltzer water, you could do, or have the tomato juice without necessarily having the vodka in it, because it doesn't change the taste. But it's also, to me, I think the bigger detriment about it is that alcohol, number one, is an appetite stimulant. That's something that we know, that if people are drinking, especially let me have a couple drinks before dinner. Might we eat more at dinner? Mhm. Might we kind of go down the bar and eat everything on the bar? Possibly, we might do that. We're probably less likely to think about the choices. It's more a free for all, or not feel so inhibited in many ways, but also in our food items. Secondly, alcohol can disrupt sleep. And sleep is such a critical component of our ROI. If we're not getting enough Z's, then it really can have impact head to toe in a negative way. So I think it's very careful there to be mindful of how much we are drinking. And the third thing, I mean, this is always something I've said to my athletes, but when they drink, and usually they're not drinking a drink, it's several, is
Sure.
it actually can suppress growth hormone release. Well,
Mm,
all right, that's kind of important for athletes because you need growth hormone in order for muscles to grow. And for all of us, as we get older, again, we're about muscle preservation, not deterioration. This is what we're trying to do. So, and then if somebody is trying to manage their weight or body fat in particular, is realizing that even though alcohol, when we drink it, it is a carbohydrate. It's derived from a potato or a grape, or depending upon what it is we choose. But when we store it as fat. So, it can be one of those things to say, first off, think about the pour. Is it a shot? Is it a 5-ounce glass of wine? That's 5 ounces, not, or if it is a beer, what's the size? We're looking at a 12-ounce can, not a 24-ounce Foster Lager. There's a
yeah,
very big difference between those
sure.
things. Or, with the bar on tap, and here's the glass they gave me. That's for 3 people, not one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, good feedback. Good feedback. Um, is there I love to read, and I always recommend books on this show. Is there a book that you could recommend specifically on nutrition for the layperson that would help them, and it could be one of your own, that would help them take that first step into refining and, augmenting their nutrition?
You know what? I really like the idea of brains being involved in the food choices that we make. And intuitive eating is one of my favorite because it's not judgy. It helps to make us more aware. Because there's a lot of time when people start to focus on their eating, it's more, I shouldn't eat this, or I'm a terrible person if I do, or I'll feel very guilty, or something horrible will happen. And we don't engage from the neck up, which is really the important component of it, is let the brain guide the choices rather than the other way around. So that one I think is absolutely terrific.
We'll find the author, but do you know the author of Intuitive Eating?
Tribole and Resch
Tribole.
are the two
Okay.
authors of
We'll
that one.
we'll put that in the show notes for people, then they can click on. Okay, cool. Cool, cool, cool. If and then second to last question, because I want to make sure that people can find out where they can follow you, find you, potentially work with you. If you could make one material change to how the world operates nutritionally, or how the world how our earth is different from a nutritional density standpoint, whatever. But as a nutritionist, I usually ask this question of people and say, how would you make one material change to the world? And it could be anything, but I want to really hone in for you on nutrition and just the world as it is today, not just America, the world. If you could wave a magic wand, if I gave you a magic wand and you could wave that and change one thing about our food supply, our water supply, whatever it may be, but you can only make one change. If you wave that magic wand today, when we woke up tomorrow, how is the world's food supply, the way we eat, whatever it is, how is it different?
Yeah, it would be about consuming more produce for everybody. And that means fruit, vegetable, and whether it is fresh, canned, dried, or frozen. If everybody said, because this can be a very easy thing to do, my effort for myself, my ROI is going to be A, maybe I'll have a salad more often. B, maybe I'm going to eat some prunes because of the benefit for my microbiome as well as for my bone health. So that's a twofold benefit.
Yeah,
C, I'm going to have tomato as a tomato sauce, as a salsa. It's not a lot of effort. All these things are available all the time. It's an add-in instead of a takeaway. And we are providing the body with those phytonutrients. People talk about macros all the time. Nobody knows what they are, but they say that. But they don't
sure.
think about the phytos. those plant nutrients or phytonutrients are really the thing that if each and every one of us collectively did that, nutritionally, we would be better off. That is truly the intuition in the kitchen.
I love it. I love it. And what is so special about phytonutrients? Like, what is so important, I should say, but ask the
Yeah.
better way.
So, the phytonutrients are really when you strip away all the other layers of things and you're left with that. So the phytonutrients have anti-inflammatory effect. The phytonutrients also can be disease fighting. So especially when we look at cancer and heart disease, it is those plant nutrients that are really conferring that benefit. The phytonutrients also having a role to play. In some cases, it's bone health. Nobody's thinking about that. But yeah, we got to support our supporting structure. And the inflammation aspect, which people talk about all the time, people that are consuming more fruit and vegetable have less inflammation, which means less reliance on some of those medications that we don't want to be over consuming on, because that also can be somewhat detrimental to the body.
Yeah. Yeah. You, one, I have to compliment you on just your energy. Like, you are a spark plug, just in all the best ways, and you're so passionate about your topic and your expertise. I love it. I love it.
Thank
It's
you.
great.
Thank you.
Where can people find you? Where can they follow you, connect with you if they wanted to to find out more about working with you? How do they do that?
Okay. My website is activeeatingadvice.com. I am on Instagram as BonciLJ, BonciILJ, and on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn as Leslie Bonci, or
Okay.
Queen. No, Leslie Bonci. That's what it is.
Well,
Wicked witch in my own home, but
exactly.
there it is. So, yeah.
Exactly. I'll make sure the producer will put all of those in the show notes too. So whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple, people can click right there. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Leslie, thank you for your expertise. Thank you for your energy that you brought to this interview. And most importantly, just the great information that you shared that I know will help our listeners. It's going to help me personally. Thank you so much.
You are certainly welcome.
Thank you for tuning in to the ThriveMore podcast. Don't forget to take a look at the show notes for any of the resources that we mentioned during the podcast. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you have access to the latest and the greatest. You can connect with me on any of the socials at Real Roger Martin. And be sure to check out our website, ThriveMoreBrands.com. There you'll find information on the brands we support and information on franchising. Thanks again for tuning in.